Oh, it's not working today. Let's try it again. Oh, no, that's a little too much. Okay, better. It's crazy what you can do with technology these days, even in a theater. Welcome to the era of spatial computing, right? Hey guys, my name is Juan, and I'm going to share with you my journey on visionOS. Uh, Let me hand this over. So, a little bit about me. I'm an electronics engineer, and I've been doing iOS apps ever since I graduated. And I'm the developer of HomeRise, a smart home app that works with HomeKit. And lately, I've been also passionate about Vision Pro. And I know that for many of you, visionOS might seem a little challenging at the beginning, right? Like a journey full of obstacles and unknowns. Some of them are easy to understand, like compile errors or unavailable frameworks, and some other are much more tricky, like spatial computing UX. This is because you don't have many guides online, and also the best practices are still to be established, right? So we're going to take a little example today. We're going to take a custom slider because everybody might be familiar with that. And I have a custom slider in my app. This is because I wanted something colorful to express the color of the lights, the shades, the temperature, and I also have a bunch of them. So uh, the system slider didn't fit my app. And on the other hand, I wanted some custom behavior like dragging for precise values, but I wanted that tap will behave like a step slider. So if you tap towards the end, instead of having 98%, you will get 100% right. Otherwise, it will be really frustrating. So I know that we're in a dev conference, so you wanted to see some code. Here, I have a custom slider, which is basically a geometry reader with a C stack and some rectangles and icons on top of it, plus some gestures to control it. And the first recommendation you get from Apple is to add a hover effect. So I say, okay, let's try it out. Hover effect, try it on the simulator. And here you can see it's working. Like every time I put the cursor in it, it's highlighting the slider I'm on. And I say, cool, let's try it out on the real thing, on Vision Pro. So let's immerse ourselves as much as we can here. Let's get rid of the code and put the video on full screen. Here you see I'm hovering with my eyes. One of the slider is highlighting, and I can still tap on it and drag it to control it. But there's something rather unsettling about this experience, and especially for you because you're looking at it through a projector, right? So it's extremely flat. So what can we improve here? First thing is visual feedback. Here I'm using the hover effect on the whole thing, but maybe it's not the best. There's some precision lacking. So let's try to change the hover effect inside the slider itself. Let's call it hover steps. And let's imagine that we're going to split our slider into segments. Yeah, so rectangles in a H tag basically. And in the center of which we're going to have a circle. Now let's put some negative margin to center the first and the last circles. And now let's make it appear only when we hover at them. So this we can do with the hover effect modifier, and we can use the isActive to set it to 1 when it's when we're looking at them, and to 002 when we're not looking. So you're wondering why 02 and why not 0? It's one of those why Apple moments. And actually, if you put 0, it's going to ignore the hover effect completely, and it's not going to work. So this is my tip number 1 for today. Use 002 as the threshold. Also, you can see here that I'm using platform-specific code. So I have if iOS use hover effect, else it's going to return self. This is just so your main UI is going to look clean as before. So now let's try it. As you see, I'm hovering with my eyes, so every circle is going on as I pass on it. And every time I tap, I know in advance where the slider is going to land. So it's a much more satisfying user experience. So what else can we improve now? There's also audio. In my iOS slider, I implemented light impact and medium impact using the core haptics. And this works great. But as soon as you try to do it on visionOS, already you have an error because the library is not available uh, because the device itself doesn't have the haptic engine. And you might imagine, like, if you had the device vibrating in your head all day long, you will have a headache by the end of the day, right? So here we're going to do some platform-specific code as well. We're going to encapsulate this into the function, so light impact will behave differently according to the platform. And you see here that I'm using the system sounds. And this is where I come to say there are no so many best practices yet. Yeah, there's not even an audio library for this kind of effects. So it's not even documented. Maybe talk to the private API guys. Um, One tip that I can give you is to go to, for example, 11 Labs and try the SFX with AI. This is something that can really work if you don't have a sound designer in your team. All right, so now that we have this behavior inside a function and our main code is still looking clean, let's try it again with some audio. Thanks. So as you see, these two are the key principles to making a much better user experience. And this way, your components, your visual components, will feel alive when you look at them. Um, they're going to have a physical presence, some kind of texture, even, right? Almost like you could reach out with your hand and grab them. Melissa, est-ce qu'on peut éteindre les lumières, s'il te plaît? 30 secondes. All right, so let's look together some further examples you can try. Thanks. Pretty sweet, huh? So let's recap with 3 takeaways. The first is to adapt visual feedback to your use case. So don't hesitate to use scale, fading, delay, or even some effect on the After Effect, like for example, the expansion wave that you see when I put it on the table. Second, play with sounds. Little sounds like or are going to improve your experience and bring you up to life. And finally, I would truly recommend you to test it on the real device. I know that not all of you have one of these lying around, and they don't have they don't exactly have this kind of goggles at the ski rental place. But ask your friends around or push your manager to get one for the team. I think your users might be really grateful for that. All right, so I hope I managed to turn on some light bulbs today, not only in this theater, but also in your minds. Thanks.
Thank you. That was really interesting. I haven't had that much of a chance to play with visionOS stuff, so it's always cool to like see what you're able to do with it. Um, have you seen anything other than sort of bouncing stuff that works really well in terms of giving like visual feedback for having touched something?
Um, I think my feedback would be that visualOS development, the development relates much more to game development, right? So here in my example, I use custom slider because I wanted to be more approachable with a Swift UI. But and the recommendation might be to use components like system components. But very often you will land into reality kits and into entities, 3D modeling, so you will need to be very creative about it. Sometimes simple things might have a great effect. Like the example I like very much is the widget that you put on the table, and then there's like the collision with the table, right?
Hmm.
So it's attached to the table, and before I put the sound, it was like, oh, really low, like it will just move there. And then I also added the wave. So there's like an expansive wave, like an
Yeah,
impact. And it's just, like a circle expanding and fading. And that's enough sometimes.
cool. Do you work with a sound designer for the sound that you work with, or do you sort of work with
Oh,
it yourself?
no, I'm an indie developer. So that's why I recommended AI SFX. So that's a new trend that I've been seeing. And actually, it's really powerful as an indie developer.
Cool. Josh, you wanna?
All right. Oh, this one's loud. Is it worth developing for visionOS in terms of b- business? Or should you rather develop for my meta glasses instead?
Right. So that's the question we ask ourselves in the visionOS community and like with my colleagues. We consider ourselves pioneers. The business is, of course, like you gotta see the numbers. I think in the future it's going to explode. Definitely, prices need to go down. The use cases also differ a lot. So visionOS lately, like it was like also pushed by Apple. Apple is pushing a lot business use cases. So 3D modeling for maybe engineering design, and especially with now they have collocated share play. So the idea is that many people with the device are going to see the same augmented reality together.
And then last question from my phone. Would you recommend sound interactions on any other platforms like iOS, iPad,
Mm,
like the pop or
right. Um, I say you need to try it. The difference is that this device feels much more personal, and even the way you do the onboarding. In my app, for example, instead of having a bunch of text, I usually have on voice for the onboarding, because you know that the it's not going through the speaker, right? The speaker is right here on your ear, so it's a much more personal experience somehow. So yeah,
all right. I think that's all I got over here.
That's all I got. All right. Thank you very
Thank
well,
you.
much, Juan.
thank you all.